Hello, very good afternoon to you, and welcome to the second leg of the Champions League. Not Champions League game, the Nations League game between Scotland and Greece. Of course, it's a very good start to the Nations League. It was 1-0 to Scotland out in Greece, hence the laser pen in Scott McTominay's eyes, but it never put him off. But it never put the guys off because they're here to talk about football today. Alaska, Ethan, and Robbie, we've got a full house today. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing extremely well, thank you. Well, I'll let you know in a couple of hours' time, depending how the game goes.
Yeah, like Alistair. Doing good. Had a good weekend so far. Started off well with Scotland's win, so hopefully we end it with another Scotland win.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully it'll continue as well. Get your comments in, guys. We're here until 4:45 to build up to the game, and also before the game. I don't know if you guys heard this, but there's a tifo getting unveiled before the game of Denis Law before the game tonight. So it'll be nice to see that, Alaska, at Hampden Park.
We could certainly do with him playing. I don't suspect quite clearly, and look at the screen, we'll realise I'm the only person on the screen who actually might have seen Denis Law playing, which I did for Scotland. Yeah, he was pretty damn good.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I've never had the pleasure of seeing him play, but obviously Scotland's joint top goal scorer, only Scottish Ballon d'Or winner. So I think that probably speaks for itself. And it's the first chance we've obviously had at Hampden to remember his career and his life as well.
Yeah, if I can just finish on the Denis Law thing, actually, Michael, I mean, not only is the top scorer, he did it in half as many games as Kenny Dalglish, which just puts it in context. And if you look at his scoring record over his entire career, it is just phenomenal. And with the greatest respect, the guys who are turning out today, they're not in the same league. I'm sorry. I know that sounds like me just being, looking back and going, it was much better then. He was much better. Sorry, he's one of the greatest players we've ever had.
There you go, Robbie. The team's not even out yet. In fact, the team's not even in the team bus yet. And somebody's asking if Ryan Christie's fit and in the squad. I think we could say maybe he'll be in the squad. He was training at Hampden the other day and preparing for the game tonight. Robbie, we're going to hear from our Greek football expert in a minute or two as well. But how do you think Greece will approach the game? Do you think that they'll come out all guns blazing, or do you think they'll basically start the game the way they finished it on Thursday night?
I think they'll probably start the way they finished it, to be honest. I don't see the need for them, especially with the way the second half went on Thursday, for them to change it too much. I thought the approach was perfect. The only thing they really missed in the game, if we're being honest, is a goal, which they probably should have got at some point during the game. But obviously, we defended well. But I think Greece's approach was probably in the same manner that they did. They didn't attack us. It wasn't all guns blazing, running straight for the defence. They played it smart. They didn't, allow too many men to go forward at times. So I suspect that'll probably be the same. Obviously, there's a few key threats, particularly in the wings, that Scotland need to be careful for. But I don't think it will be a much different Greek side to what we've seen on Thursday.
Alistair, you were on Thursday night, but I was saying to the guys after the game, but were you quite surprised with the performance by Scotland in that first half, knowing that the squad's not been together since November?
Yeah, long story short, I was pleasantly surprised is probably the best way of putting it, because quite clearly the Greeks are a good team. You've seen some of the other games they've had recently, against England and things like that. They're a good team. And we were playing them in Athens, and we were well worth the lead in the first half. Well worth the lead. I agree with Robbie, though, the second half, they kind of turned the screw a bit, and we were pretty lucky to get away. I mean, they obviously hit the post, they had the penalty they didn't get, all that kind of thing, which, to be fair, wasn't a penalty. And what on earth the referee was doing giving it, I don't know, but that's something we can come to later on. No, I was very pleasantly surprised. I think tonight's quite simple. If we can play like we played in the first half, then we'll win. If we play like we played in the second half, I don't think we will win. So that's my analysis. I'm conscious we're on for another hour or so, but that's what I think is going to happen. One of those two scenarios, or somewhere in the middle, and we'll get a draw, and then we're still through.
There you go. It's a big game tonight, and I don't know if we're going defensive, but we are going defensive on the show now. Regan, how are you?
I'm not bad, Michael. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Good to see you.
Aye, mate, it's always good to be on. I don't know how long I'll be on for, because I'll have someone around the world to watch the game, but it's good. It's good to be on with you guys. I'm just back in the door there, so I just thought I'd pop on for a bit.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yep. So, are you looking forward to tonight's game, Regan?
Michael, I think Scotland should win, but yeah, I think the wee 17-year-old that come on for Greece on there, I thought he was quite good. So I think it'll be a difficult match, but I think it's a match that we should be definitely winning it, especially at home as well. But I think as well, I'll be right tuned into the Portugal match tonight, because it's so important that Portugal win.
Yeah, no, exactly. And just before we deep dive into the game, as it were, because we've got an hour and a half to go before the big game. And somebody wants to know if Ryan Kriski's playing. We'll get that team news to you. Ethan is looking about for the team news as well. So we'll get to that later on. But I spoke to our expert from Greece, Stephen. You might remember him. He was on the show the other week, talking to us about the game. And I caught up with him this morning about what's his thoughts going into tonight's game.
After with some substitutions, we were much better for the majority of the second half, and we had a bit more dynamism to us, and we created more chances. And one of our best chance for us came in the second half with Christos Solis's shot cannoning off the post. So tad unfortunate there, but yeah, overall it's a disappointing result for Greece. But the media and the fans have at least taken a lot of confidence from the second half performance in particular, with certain players coming on, making us look so much better than we were in the first 45 minutes.
I was going to say as well, Stephen, what was the media's reaction to that result on first night?
Disappointed, like I said, disappointed, because we expected more, especially at home. We needed to get a win, not just a result. We needed to win at home, in Greece, and we weren't able to do so. And perhaps there were certain choices in the starting lineup that didn't work, but then you have to give Ivan Jovanovic credit. There's a couple of injuries that, two players in particular, Bakasetas, the captain, and Kourbelis, one of our midfielders, they both would have started in this game. And I think there were big misses for us, especially in terms of their leadership on the pitch. We didn't have that kind of vocal leadership that we would have had, especially with Bakasetas. And in general, I think the referee had a poor game as well. I think, for both teams, not just for Greece. I think for both teams, there were certain decisions that he gave that were just not right at all. We spoke about it, Michael, the penalty for Scotland. Look, if that's given for Greece, then obviously I wouldn't have any complaints. But, as it wasn't given for Greece, I don't think it was a penalty. I think it was very harsh. At best, it was a soft challenge. And I think that Lazaros Rota actually gets stamped on before the initial contact where he falls into the box. And look, that's just football. These things are sometimes given. These things are sometimes not given. We had a couple of decisions that we probably could have been given that weren't throughout the game. Our penalty decision that wasn't given was the correct decision. Absolutely. He didn't, our player fell into the box, but he wasn't fouled in the box. So that wasn't a penalty. And we wasted that free kick anyway. So, yeah, like I said, fans and media take a lot of confidence from the second half, especially when Konstantinos Garetsas came on, and he was immediately the best player on the pitch when he came on. Only 17 years old, but he was doing things that we haven't seen a Greek player do like that for a very long time. So it's really exciting to see him feature already, and he's expected to start the second game, if not coming on, definitely coming on again. And it'd be amazing if he starts for us this evening.
Obviously, it's only kind of like half time in the tie. Obviously, Stevie Clarke was speaking to the media yesterday, and he said, "Yeah, it was a good performance away from home, but it's only half time." Obviously, 1-0 Scott McTominay scored that kind of penalty for Scotland in the first leg of the game. Talking about tonight's game, then, how do you think Greece will approach the game? Will they come out all guns blazing from the first minute, or will they wait until they? I mean, how do you think they will approach the game?
Well, we hope that Greece approached the game like they did in the second half of the first leg, which was, not going gun-ho to leave them exposed at the back, but at least trying a lot more to kind of not like chase the game, make sure to be in charge of possession, actually try to create more meaningful chances. It's why I think there'll be changes in this game for sure. Like not just for players who didn't perform, but obviously in midfield, Manolis Siopis accumulated too many yellow cards, so he is suspended for the second leg. And so I imagine we might see the likes of, Konstantinos Galanopoulos was called up for the squad. He's a centre midfielder who plays in Cyprus for Apoel. I think he will probably start this game. Petros Mandalos did not have his best time in a Greek shirt. Could very well see someone else start in his place. Maybe Christos Mouzakidis from Olympiakos or Christos Safires from Slavia Prague is expected to start. And like I said, Konstantinos Karetsas, I think he's going to start. I would be very surprised if he doesn't, because he was amazing when he came on. So we just have to take a more direct approach like we did in the second half and try and penetrate Scotland, because we missed some huge chances in the second half that would have at least got us a draw. And so if we if we can level the tie early on, we stand ourselves in really good stead to maybe overturn the tie completely.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, looking at Greece's record, they've actually won 4 out of the last 5 away games, and that was including beating our old enemies here in Scotland, England at Wembley in the last game as well. So Greece hasn't going to be any kind of like pushovers.
No, and the last 4 of those matches include Malta, so I guess take that with a pinch of salt. But yes, one of those fixtures was England and the other one was Republic of Ireland as well. So we don't, Greece historically has a much better record at home. But, anything's possible with Greece, as we saw against England. That really sparked people's confidence in this team that, with the right kind of setup, we can go and beat anyone on our day, because England is one of the best teams in the world. And that was an amazing result for us. So, Greece is in a bit of a transition period at the moment, because a lot of older players are getting phased out. You're seeing all of these younger players who aren't quite ready to fully kind of start, who are really talented, highly touted in Europe, coming through. And so we have that kind of almost gap in the middle in certain positions where we don't have anyone at their peak yet playing in midfield, especially, as I said, what I expected to happen against Scotland, where I just felt like your midfield was vastly better than ours in the first half, and that's why you dominated proceedings then. And so if some of our talented players can turn up, especially the younger players tonight, we're confident. We're quietly confident that maybe we can, at the very least, level the tie. And who knows? That football's a strange thing sometimes.
And good. Finally, I was speaking to you about the media back home as well, but obviously you're disappointed that you got beat 1-0. But in the same instance, you must be quite happy because it's only 1-0. I mean, if it was 2 or 3-0, you would say, well, yeah, we're going to go for it from the first whistle, but it's only 1-0. It's only one goal in the game. And I mean, from a Scotland point of view, we're delighted the way that the performance, especially in the first half, we were lucky in the second half, basically, you know, a bit full credit to Greece, but you must be confident because it's only kind of like 1-0.
Yeah, the scoreline absolutely is one of the big reasons too. I mean, like you said, if it was 2 or 3-0, that's it. It's game over. It's tie over. Even 2-0, you know, going to Hampden Park, that's going to be a big ask to score 3 goals in 90 minutes for Greece to really kind of overturn things. But yeah, because it's 1-0, and like I keep saying, because the second half was so good that we very well could have got a result in the first leg. This gives us the confidence to go out there and just no pressure in the sense of we just have to. The players know what they need to do. It's not about trying to get a result. It's not about trying to just put in a good performance. It's about winning it by any means necessary. And I hope they do that tonight, because the team showed that they're more than capable of standing toe to toe with Scotland in the second half, and they have to go into this game with the same mentality.
There you go. That's where Greece expert Stephen, and I'm sure we'll speak to him mid-season as we meet again in a few games mid-season. So you'll see his face on the show, and we'll possibly get him on live as well. So that was a good insight into the national team of Greece, Robbie.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a guy that clearly knows his stuff. I mean, some of the pronunciations I don't dream I've been able to say really, but look, I think he's right. I think he's spot on with everything he said. Greece should look at this game to progress the way they did at, you know, the end of the second half. You know, a smart team that, you know, they don't, as I said, they don't fling too many bodies forward. They're quite smart in their passive play. So I expect the same tonight. I don't think it'll be easy for us, but look, we've got our own quality players. You know, spoke a bit about some of the youth, the talent that's coming through at Greece. We're the exact same. You know, you look at some of the players that have been called up, your James Wilkins, Lennon Mills. We've also got the players that, if they need to come on the park, obviously they didn't on Thursday, but if they need to come on, they can come on and make a difference.
We've got the team now.
Oh yeah,
there is one change, one that maybe we expected. Ryan Christie, as in the starting 11, is the only change, but it's Lewis Ferguson who drops out and not Kenny McLean. So the team, I'll just run through it. Craig Gordon, Anthony Ralston, Andy Robertson, Scott McTominay, Grant Hanley, John McGinn, Billy Gilmore, Shea Adams, Ryan Christie, John Souttar, and Kenny McLean. And I've noticed I think there's a player missing from the bench, so I'll need to try and work out who that is. But that's the Scotland squad for this evening.
And I suppose as well, thanks for bringing that team even, but I suppose as well, Regan, that it was an extra bonus on Thursday night that no one from Scotland picked up a yellow card and missed the game tonight.
Aye, because it was like 3 or 4 players, like Robertson, Tierney, obviously he didn't get booked either. So it's just good that these players stayed clear of the booking, and hopefully that can do very well for us in the match later on. I mean, I think Scotland have got more than enough quality on that team. I personally would have put Lewis Ferguson in instead of McLean, but obviously Steve Clarke, he sort of goes on the tried and tested of the players he knows, of the players he trusts. So I fair play to Steve Clarke, he's chosen Kenny McLean, but I think that's a strong enough squad that can really go and I'm possibly going to say take 2 or 3 off Greece tonight.
Hopefully. I'd love that. I'm confident with that team. I think that is, I would have, like Regan, I would have had Christie in instead of McLean. You could maybe say that's a wee bit too offensive, but Christie's been playing a lot more of a reserved role at Bournemouth this season. He's been very good at it, so I think he could easily drop in next to Gilmore if we need to later in the game, maybe. And the player who's not in the squad's Ryan Porteous, so I don't know if that's through suspension or an injury, but he's not on the bench. And for Greece have made quite a few changes, including the 17-year-old Karetzas is going to start for them.
Oh,
So yeah, they've rolled the dice quite a bit.
It's okay, Ethan. We're not going to ask you how to pronounce your names because
I was going to ask Ethan, could you pronounce them? But
I don't pay you enough to say that. So there you go. But no, I mean, I think that I'll just call him a 17-year-old. I think he was a 30 to start the game. And Alistair, we said after the game on first night when me, Reagan, and Ethan was on after the show. So for the show on first night, that Ryan Christie basically came out the cold after the Euros where he gets sent off, and basically he nearly get sent off again that other night as well. So maybe that's part of the reason why he's not playing tonight.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I would say so, because when he came on, Ryan Porteous said he gave away the foul, and it was a really poor tackle, and then he gave away another foul on the edge of the box, which he didn't really need to. So yeah, I think you can see that sort of hot-headed side of him as to maybe why he doesn't start, because he plays at a higher level than Grant Hanley on a more regular basis. But Hanley's the one who's preferred, and as we spoke on the show on Thursday, I think Hanley was pretty decent the other night. He didn't make any errors, and he was pretty solid alongside John Souttar.
And I suppose Alistair, it's a big night as well for. I know people saying about Kenny McLean. I don't know if Skibby Clark put Kenny McLean in here because he's going to win his 50th cap tonight for Scotland. If you look at John McGinn, he's winning his 75th cap. It's quite hard to believe that. And Scott McTominay, his 60th cap tonight for Scotland. So even though it's a big game for Scotland, but it's a big game for these individual players, Alistair, as well.
Yeah, no, it is. I think the midfield's really interesting because it's how they're actually going to play, and we'll obviously find that out, when the game starts. But as everyone said, Christie's been playing probably the best football of his career in many respects since he's been moved into the centre. And it's interesting that Clark was saying before the game that he regards him as somebody who started out as a wide player, and he still thinks he's a wide player from that point of view. If you look at the levels, I mean, you were talking about, it was mentioned about, the difference between Hanley, for example, and Porteous or whatever else. I mean, the difference in the levels between Ryan Christie playing really well with Bournemouth, who again are playing really well, and with the greatest respect, Kenny McLean's playing in a different league. That's not to say he's not a good player, but he's not as good as Porteous. How you fit all that together when you've got Gilmore and McTominay is really, really hard. And then, of course, you've got Ferguson as well. So I sympathise to some extent because that's obviously, as we all know, the area of the pitch that we're strongest. Up front and the defence, not quite so good. But the midfield, we've got really very, very good players. How you put those together is really hard. I'll be interested to see how we actually play, because I always like to see width in a team. I think if you play with a winger who's prepared to actually take somebody on, the game changes and then you've got a chance of scoring a goal. If you're just recycling it around midfield, apart from being tedious to watch, you're less likely to score, in my view.
I mean, when Ethan read out a team sheets there, I mean, I wasn't going to pretend not to be disappointed. I think it's harsh dropping Ferguson after the game he had on Thursday. I thought he was superb over the full game. So I think, look, I can see why he done it. Obviously, bringing Christie in, it means you don't want to go too attacking, and there's no point, playing Ferguson and Christie at the same time and drop McLean, because it does leave a huge space open on the defensive side of the park. But I think if you lose Ferguson, you have got to be gutted. And I look at a Greece team as well, and one noticeable, player dropped I see is Kostas Tsimikas, who's obviously had a lot of time with Liverpool. I thought he was actually very good on first points as well.
I don't know if you noticed, probably, but he did put in an argument with his teammate Robertson during the game. They were quite arguing a few times.
Aye, but I actually thought, by the way the game went, I thought Tsimikas was at the heart of sort of everything Greece were doing on the attack. Any corner free kick they get, it would be Tsimikas right up there to take it. So I'm really surprised they did choose to drop him. But if you're Ferguson, I think you'd be gutted that he never get picked for this game again.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Ferguson, he maybe wasn't as good as the sort of usual three in the middle, Gilmore, McTominay, McGinn, but I thought he had a solid display, playing a little bit of a different position out on the left is what he does usually with Bologna. So, I think it's a little bit harsh on him, but I think, as Alistair mentioned, Ryan Christie's playing the best football maybe ever in his career. So I think you're going to put him back in once he becomes available. But yeah, Kenny McLean, obviously Steve Clark holds a lot of trust in. But yeah, just to touch on Robbie's point, a few of the changes from Greece really strange. Changed both their fullbacks. None of them that come in played any minutes in the first leg. They changed both their central midfielders, one of them through suspension, and then they brought in Pavlidis back up front, who's obviously the danger man at Benfica. But I think Stephen said on Thursday that he's not shown his best work with the national team. But I didn't think Greece's striker the other night was very impressive, so I can see why he made that change. But the 6 changes, so they've obviously the manager's not very happy with the performance in the first leg and with how they started the game anyway, and maybe taking more inspiration from the second half. And I think they will try and come out guns blazing and carry the momentum from the first leg, and Scotland will need to start fast and be on their toes.
I just wanted to bring up Graham's point here. Now, we are a big advocate of youth football on the show. Talking about youth football, by the way, we've got a show on Tuesday night at 7:30, talking all things youth football. So join us on the locker room for that, 7:30 on Tuesday night. Alistair, Graham makes a comment here saying, I really hope Wilson and Miller get some time. It would be great to see them getting a chance. Now, we've spoke about this numerous times on the show, Alistair, when we do the Friday night show, but also the Scotland games as well. There's Greece running in for a 17-year-old to play a big, massive game. Right? You look at Spain last year in the quarterfinals, and a wonder kid and scored a goal. But Scotland, we don't seem to do that. Now, it would be a shame that if Wilson and Miller didn't get in the game time, and then Goose goes back to their team sides, and a bit kind of disappointed about that. How do you feel about youth getting picked but not getting played? I mean, I always say about Shankland getting away because, and the guys might sick of me going on about this, but I mean, there's a guy, like, it was Scotland fun for Hearts last season. Every second week, he get called up for the squad, right? He was a sub. He came on and scored a goal, and then in the exact next game, he never got on. So how did you feel about that? About youth players getting kind of like turned off by international football a wee bit?
Well, before I answer that, if I can just go back to the programme coming up on Tuesday, which you've got Scott Robertson. If anybody's watching, make sure you watch this. Scott Robertson is absolutely one of the leading guys in youth football in Scotland, and extremely well worthwhile listening to. But anyway, that's not answering your question. I'm going to say the same as I've said every time you ask me this kind of question, Michael. We have a problem in Scotland, partly down to the structure of the league, that we just do not have enough young guys coming through. And if you look at the SFA report, which I'm sad enough to have done, 114 pages of it, they compare us with similar countries, similar size, like Croatia, etc., etc. So these countries have got teams bringing young players in, playing in the top flight, playing in the international team, being sold on for lots of money, which, let's be honest, Scottish clubs need as well. And I would say, look at Billy Gilmore. There's a guy who came through really, really young. Everybody knew he was a real talent. Went to Brighton, now gone out to Italy. Now, if he wasn't playing for Scotland, you'd be amazed. You'd be like, why on earth is he not being picked? He clearly has the talent. This is a very boring, cliched phrase, but it's absolutely true. If you're good enough, you're young enough. It really doesn't matter. You can see and I've been practicing saying this boy's name for the last 15 minutes, Karetis, or what his name is, so I couldn't even get that right. There's a 17-year-old who is clearly a brilliant player. Was it Pele was 16 or something when he made his debut, or 17 in the World Cup, something like that? It doesn't matter what age you are. Just as one final thing, let the other guys come in this a minute or two. If you look down south in the Premier League in England, some of the big clubs are playing 17-year-olds.
Yep.
We just do not have that facility in Scotland because managers are too scared to play them, and that.
So, I think it's also because of the owners as well. Also because they're too trigger happy to sack a manager.
Yeah, I think that's true. But it then translates. If you go back to your thing about youth football, if you've not got grassroots and players coming through, because let's be honest, there's a lot of other things which kids can do nowadays. You've got a serious problem, not just for the clubs, but also for the national side. The days of people playing with a rolled up sock or something in the streets is long since gone. But we do not have enough good young players coming through, so we get really excited when we do. And Graham's quite right. Wilson, Miller, it would be great to see them get a game, but only if it's appropriate for the game. If we were winning 2-0, 3-0, then yes, I can see them coming on. If we were getting pummeled, not a chance.
Yeah, I think, Alistair, you're spot on there. Look, it's good that we've got the guys like Miller and Wilson coming up into the squad now, and it's what we've all sort of wanted for a good while. So you see that is actually really good. Obviously, Graham mentioned Ben Doak as well. Another one that's recently found his way into the squad. It's good we're getting these guys in. Obviously, Doak's a bit different with his circumstances, but for the likes of James Wilson, you're right, there's no point in putting them in a pressure situation. They're still young guys, we need to remember that. It's fine watching Greece put a 17-year-old in. If the Greek manager can trust him to go in this type of game, then that's fine. But we have got more than, enough experienced guys where we don't need to rely on these youth players getting into the team. We can settle them into the national team. It's a big step for, playing club football to jump into a national team. It is big. So for these guys like Miller and Wilson, it's good to get them experience in the squad and have them on the bench. And, if we are 2 or 3-0 up, then bring them in, sure. But in a game where the tide's still very much open, I don't think there's any rush to get them in playing football.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they need to be put in at the right time. I think James Wilson, he'll be lucky to get minutes because Steve Clarke's obviously selected a few strikers. He brought George Hurst on the other night for his debut. He's obviously got Tommy Conway there as well and Kevin Nisbet. So we've got loads of strikers in the squad. And then for Lennon Miller, I think he's got a much more of a chance of getting minutes tonight. I think he could come on and make his debut, and I would love to see that. But I think, as you guys touched on, I think if it's a tight game, then maybe he's not going to bring Lennon Miller on because he's got players like Ferguson, who obviously probably bring on before him. And yeah, just to touch on about the age, I think I made this point the other night. I mistakenly said that Lewis Ferguson was the youngest starter for Scotland, forgetting about Billy Gilmore. But Billy Gilmore, 23, and Greece have 8 starters that are younger than him. So just shows about the young talent.
I think that's a good point you made because these places are not scared. They're not scared to bring on the youth players. But I think in Scotland in general, there's a kind of like, we're not able to do it. The biggest example I can give you is, remember Dembele at Celtic? Everybody I spoke to in Scottish football told me this guy's some talent. It'll be great for Celtic. It'll be great for Scotland. And now he's playing it down at Blackpool. You know what I mean? No disrespect to Blackpool, but the best thing about Blackpool is the pleasure beach. The football team. So I mean, I don't really know how his timings went so far, but I think it's also down to Celtic and Rangers to show these players a pathway, because even a player like Bobby Wilson that's playing for the Eric at the moment, I think he's a great example. I think he's somebody that we should be better in the squad as well, because I think it's so important that these people are learning from people like John and Kenny McLean, because I feel as well like because these have got experience of international tournaments of what it takes to win. I think it would be too much if you said to all these young guys in 5 years' time, right, you need to go in there. But if you can see people like Ferguson and even James Wilson, if you can get like them like 10 or 12 starting spaces over the next 2 or 3 years, then when John retires or Kate McLean retires, they've been there and done it. No, they're not just being thrown in because these guys have been retired and nobody else is there. They've got that experience of going to the Euros or World Cups.
Well, I think I do agree with your point, but I'd also say that, you know, on Graham's point as well, you know, about getting young players bedded in, I think we're starting to see that now. You know, you look at the national team maybe 6-7 years ago, there was no sign of, you know, any of this happening, you know, but the national team was an afterthought to some people. So, you know, the progression that we've made, I think what I would say is don't wish on these guys to come on too soon. Yes, it's good they're in the squad, but what Steve Clarke's done and what I like to give him credit for is he's built a structure now at Scotland. You know, that starting 11, you look at that is a structural Scotland team that we know is reliable to go out and win these games.
I think also, I don't know if Alistair might back me up here, but I think also the problem is, in general, is if you look at likes of Lewis Ferguson or even Aaron Hickey that went to Bologna, these guys are seeing their future away from Scottish football, and that might be great because they're moving on and they're doing well in their respective leagues. Lewis Ferguson won the best midfield player in Serie A. That's a big achievement. But I think the problem is that Ferguson knew that Rangers didn't trust him, and obviously Barry and Derek didn't want to go to Celtic. That was clear and obvious. Barry told me at the time. So obviously, I think it's great that Lewis has been out there, but I think Rangers still didn't believe that Lewis Ferguson was good enough to be in the Rangers squad. And I can tell you right now, he would be the first name on that Rangers team sheet at the moment.
I think you're probably right, actually. I think, I mean, he's clearly gone to Italy and he's again improved as a player. Though what I would say is that he's probably improved more as a player in Italy than he would have done if he'd stayed in Scotland, irrespective of who he stayed with, because he's playing at a far higher level, and that's something which again can only be good. You can see it with McTominay, you know, to a lesser extent Gilmore, because obviously he's been in and out a little bit of the Napoli team, but McTominay, if you're a Man United fan just now, you must be wondering what on earth possessed them to let him go, given the problems they've had this season. You know, it's interesting. The point, I mean, Graham's point, which I know you touched on there, Robbie, about the loyalty that Clarke has. He does have that. He's always had that, and it's frustrating, I think, for us as fans. I heard Sean Dyche on the radio today, and he was really interesting. Yeah, really good, wasn't he? Yeah, and he was just talking about the problem of trying to actually. Well, he said you can't explain to fans because he gave the example of somebody who's given him abuse about why don't you bring a sub on, and he said, "I've already brought 4 subs on." Okay, he's allowed 1 more, but he said he wasn't going to do it at that stage in the game. And he says it's really hard because fans, you watch the game and you get tied up in it, you get passionate, and you think, you know, we should do this, this, and this, and this. But he's actually trying to make it all happen. He's the guy who's in charge. I don't think necessarily that he always gets it right, but I don't think any manager gets it right. But let's be honest, we beat Greece. We were put to the mill in the second half, and we defended, and we got away with the result, a win. So that's what he's paid to do. If we get a draw tonight, we've won overall. Might not be the best game in the world, but that's what he's paid to do, and he's successful. And I know that at times it's not difficult to distinguish between Steve Clarke and a ray of sunshine, but he's a very, very good manager.
Yeah, I mean, to give, again, Alistair, I think you're spot on. To give Steve Clarke credit, what he's built since he, you know, got the Scotland job, it's been an amazing transformation. You know, if you go back only a few years ago, we would have never dreamed of being in this situation where we're going away to Greece and we're picking up 1-0 wins. You know, I think instead of, you know, coming on the show and, you know, I'm not saying we're negative all the time, but instead of being negative about the youth players and what we're doing, you know, we should look at the positives. What Steve Clarke's done. You know, you know, we've got a structure that's Scotland now. You know, it is slowly bedding in youth players. So I think, you know, it's all very good to, you know, want these youth players, but He, people got some credit. He's finally actually at a stage now where he can start sort of bedding, your Dokes, Lennon Miller, James Wilson's into the squad.
I listened to John's brother yesterday, Stephen, and he actually made a good point about this Nations League. He said that as much as we don't actually know if we're winning or losing, it's a good thing tonight. It definitely has improved the players in terms of we've played against Croatia, Poland, France, Germany, and a lot of these matches we've played, even the game against Holland. The game against Holland, we should have probably been 2 or 3 up in the first half. And then against Croatia, who just beat France 2-0, by the way, we just beat Croatia in a last home game. So I think it is great progression for the players, and obviously the Nations League's been a big help towards Scotland.
I think as well, guys, Stevie Clarke made reference to this last night in his press conference as well, because back in the day when I was kind of like growing up, before maybe Robin Ethan was maybe on the reserve, that's how old I am, by the way. When you meet up for meaningless friendlies, it doesn't mean. I mean, the case in point, Reagan, is John Kennedy. Played a meaningless friendly at Hampden, and his career finished. But now, but now that you meet up every few months, and the games actually mean something.
I think these the National League things have been very good. I think it's probably to do more with actually UEFA wanting the bigger teams to play each other more often, because no disrespect to a Latvia versus Bulgaria, but that's not what the Nations League is meant to be. They want to see England against France, or Portugal against Germany, or Scotland against Croatia. They want to see the big teams playing against each other.
Yeah, I think the Nations League sort of format was sort of flawed at the start, but I think when you compare it to friendlies, I think people have grew quite a liking to it. Sort of, you can test yourself. You usually find yourself at an appropriate level. And as I think you have all touched on, Scotland being in the Nations League A, although it might jeopardise our chance of sort of winning the group and getting a chance at maybe a Euro playoff, like we qualified for Euro 2021. But we're testing ourselves against the sort of the best teams in Europe every match almost, which is only going to help us when we actually make it to the tournaments. And instead of having underwhelming campaigns like we have done at the last 2 competitions, we can go into the games with confidence, knowing that we've got positive competitive results against these teams under our belt.
But see, when you think about it, Reagan, right? Obviously, you're a Celtic man, and Ethan is another Celtic man as well on the call. But like the Nations League is basically designed the way that the new format of the Champions League is designed, because obviously for years gone past, Celtic and Rangers has been up against it. But that format has now worked in the kind of what you would say smaller teams' favour in terms of qualifying as well, and I think that's the same as the Nations League.
Because it's taking nothing away from Steve Clarke and the players, but it makes it easier. Whereas if we don't qualify for Euros, then we've got that through the back door, and it's great for us because it's worked out twice. I mean, I remember that first when we played Ukraine in the playoff, and that I know Ukraine just started the war then, and people were saying that we should just let Ukraine walk over, but it was very important for us to qualify for the Euros then. So I think the playoffs been a great thing for us, Michael, and I'm just hoping that Denmark can lose this match tonight so that we can get a straight through to the World Cup, because I think that's the one thing that Steve Clarke would want to achieve before he moves on as Scotland manager, because he's been here what is it, six years now. So I think he'll stay for one more campaign, and I think if he gets us to the World, then I think that could possibly be one of the best Scotland managers to ever be, because I think to get Scotland to a World Cup and back-to-back Euros is a great achievement.
I think he will. I think he'll go down in history with like great Craig Brown as well, Alistair. But also, like talking about tonight's game, and I was saying this to Stephen early on in the show when I was doing that interview with him. It's only 1-0, right? Fair enough. If it was 2-0, I think we would be more kind of like relaxed going into a kind of sellout Hampden tonight. But it's only 1-0. But Greece would actually come at Scotland from the first whistle. So in terms of Scotland, how do you think that they will approach this game tonight?
That's a good question. Thinking about the way Steve Clarke normally approaches these kind of things, I think it will. We're not. Let's put it this: we are not going to be gung ho. I'll be amazed if we are. Because I just don't think that's just not the way he approaches games. He's much more methodical on that. Part of me, a large part of me, would actually like to see us being gung ho. Again, I've said this on the show before, talking about club games. If you're playing against a team which on paper is better than you, the more time you spend in their half, the less time they spend in your half, the less chance you've got of conceding a goal. So if we can actually take the game to them, then clearly that puts them on the back foot. Gives us more chance of scoring a goal, and actually you then settle into the game. If I go back to what I said earlier, if Greece play the way they played in the second half and start like that, and we play like we played in the second half, then I'm afraid we're going to get beat, because they should have scored in that second half. I don't think we'll sustain it for the whole game, but we've absolutely got to get, in my view, we've got to get to half time where we're probably equal with Greece. So even if it's 0-0, 1-1, doesn't really matter. I think if we're a goal behind, then the pressure all piles up in the second half.
But the other way to look at it, Ethan, is Greece would be quite happy with a 1-0 defeat, because obviously it's only, you know, if they score early, that's going to put Scotland on the back foot, and obviously it's going to make Hampden very, very quiet as well.
Yeah, I think I made this comparison last week, or Thursday even. Similar to Celtic's tie against Bayern Munich, you think usually if you're the first leg's at home, you need to win the first leg. But the way the first leg went at Celtic Park against Bayern Munich, Celtic lost the game by 1 goal, but ended the better team with more momentum, and then Celtic went into the next game with confidence, even though they had lost the first game. So I imagine Greece will probably be the same. They've lost out by a goal. They could have easily took it level to Hampden. So I think they'll have confidence, and Scotland will need to defend well, need to be concentrated like they were in the first leg. I know Greece had a lot of shots, but Craig Gordon only had 1 to save. Didn't have to pull off any amazing saves, but I think he should expect to tonight. But I think we defended well and we attacked well when we could, especially in the first half. I think in the second half especially, I think some of our midfielders just wanted too much time on the ball at times. But I'm sure they would have looked at that and they'll know how they can sort of attack Greece and where their weaknesses lie. Although with Greece changing over half of their team, that might be a little bit more difficult.
Even if people's just joining us, can you repeat the Scotland starting 11 tonight?
Yeah. So Craig Gordon goals, back 4. Andrew Robertson, Grant Hanley, John Souttar, Anthony Ralston, and in a midfield sort of 5 of Billy Gilmore, Kenny McLean, Ryan Christie, who's the only change in for Lewis Ferguson, and he's alongside Scott McTominay and John McGinn, and Shea Adams is the lone striker. So that's the Scotland starting 11.
Just to ask you guys, Ethan was briefly touching on Greece's, weaknesses there. If you look at their strengths, and obviously the big headlines are about the 17-year-old that's being on now starting the game. I look at how he played in the second half of that game on Thursday, and I look at Andy Robertson as well. Robertson was very lenient to go near this guy. Now, that's where most of their chances came from. This guy could get the crosses into the box. That's where they hit the post. So, I mean, look, without Tierney being in the lineup, and obviously if they picked Tierney, then it would have been an indication how defensive. So I don't think he should have. But I look at this and I go, what is Steve Clarke going to tell Robertson to do? Because if Robertson's that, wary of going near this guy again, he's going to run Scotland off the park. He's going to be the main focal point to create all the chances. So how did Steve Clarke get Robertson to combat him?
Yeah, I think Robertson was quite, as you said, he was quite standoffish and quite happy to let Karetzas just come in on his left foot and put crosses into the box or shots. And they've got Pavlidis starting tonight, who's a top striker across Europe. He scored 10 goals in the Portuguese league this season. 8 of them have been headers. So looking at that combination, it seems like it could be quite a dangerous one. So yeah, I think Karetzas will need to be defended well. But on the other side, they've got Christos Cholis, also playing in Belgium with Club Brugge, very dangerous player as well. So they've got dangerous attacking talent, but so have Scotland. And I think if we can control that midfield area like we did in the first half of the first leg, maybe a more complete 90-minute performance, we should be good to go through. But if we start well in the first half and get another goal, 2 goals up, maybe even if we sort of drop off in the second half, it might be enough to carry us through. But obviously you want to sort of have a convincing performance throughout.
Alistair Stevie Clarke was talking to the media yesterday, and he basically says, I think we have improved as a team. We've improved, I think, as individual players, and we have improved, and we understand how to play at this level. It's talking about the game now. He says it's a game we want to win, and it's going to be difficult. I think they have to come in and have a go. I think they will start the way they started, the way that they started the second half as well. And that's the thing we what we were talking about, the Nations League and all that, and meaningless friendlies. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, Stevie Clarke might take criticism with the Euros and playing negative team systems and all the rest of it, but it's about getting the job done. And I think as well, the team has grown in confidence as well, Alistair.
It has. And I think, going back to what we're saying about the manager previously and, trying to put players together, he's also, and I'm answering this question in a slightly different way, if you don't mind, Michael, he's bringing in people like Hanley and Anthony Ralston, who are not getting a game for their clubs, who are clearly, I suspect, will be maybe playing at other clubs next year. Maybe not Ralston, to be fair, but he's getting a performance out of these guys. And I think that's, again, the reflection of his ability to manage people who are, really not performing at the peak for the clubs because they're not even getting a game. So how he brings that all together is a reflection of his skills as a manager. And I think everything everyone said, can't disagree with it. I mean, it's football. It's an awful lot of what ifs, supposing they hadn't hit the post, supposing they'd equalised in that first leg. Supposing we hadn't got the penalty, which, in retrospect, probably wasn't a penalty, So there's all those unknowns which could kick in. Depends how the referee is tonight. I mean, the referee is, your Greek journalist said, was not good for either team. I think in particular, the penalty decision for Greece was a shocker because he was well positioned and it was quite evident. And if he's refereeing at that level, he should certainly see that's not inside the box. So all these kind of variables, you just do not know because it's football. And I suspect that it may well be a bit nervy at times tonight. It's Scotland. Let's be honest. This is what we're like. I can remember games when you lost 1-0 and that was you over a tournament. Many tournaments in those days. Incidentally, by the way, I would also add that in terms of your great managers, there's a few other people like Ferguson and indeed Willie Ormond, who had an awful lot better players to play with. but they did get us to World Cups, and that's obviously where we'd like to be again. But you look at the way world football is now. Back in my youth, if we were playing Greece, you'd expect to win. If Celtic were playing a team from Cyprus or Rangers were playing a team from Greece, they'd expect to win. Nowadays, you don't. It's changed totally, you know.
And I think that's why the Portugal match is so important also, because I said that to Michael the other night. As much as folk might not think about it right now, it's so important that Portugal win that game, because Denmark, Greece, and Belarus, that's a great opportunity to go to World Cup. Not disrespect to Denmark and Belarus or Greece, but I think there are 3 teams that we could win every single match we play against them. But if we get Portugal instead of Denmark, then that'd be a totally different kettle of fish.
Yeah, Portugal are a good team. I mean, let's not be it. They're better than us. But we'll wait and see. I mean, you're right. That you're almost looking at. It's like a lot of things in football. You know, you come to the end of the season, you're actually watching your own game, but you've got somebody, the radio on, to let you know what's happening in the game down the road, because that's the one which might get you relegated or promoted or whatever. You know.
So I'll be definitely tuning into that game at 8:15 tonight as well.
And I suppose Goose come back to what I was saying earlier on, Robbie and Ethan, about these players kind of like being capped. I mean, John McGinn, I mean, he's had a brilliant career, especially up at Hibs as well. And don't forget, he had a chance to go to Celtic as well. Scott McTominay is brilliant at Man United, but he's flying the flag with Billy Gilmore. And I don't know if you guys saw his press conference yesterday, but Scott McTominay says that he's like a wee brother to him, because they're out playing in that way, and they go out to meet to eat together and socialise together as well.
Yeah. It's a strange dynamic for Scotland. We've not really had sort of players, certainly since I've watched Scotland, that have sort of went abroad and sort of done us proud. I think all the Scottish players that have went to Italy have put in a good showing for themselves, and most of them have got sort of better moves, and if not better moves, have sort of went up the pecking chain. I can't remember the saying. Pecking order. That's mixing up sayings there. You look at Lewis Ferguson as well. He's obviously the captain at Bologna, and they're doing very well at Napoli. I know Billy Gilmore, he's not always been starting, but I think he's broke into the starting 11 now for the last few games. Scott McTominay's been one of the. I think he would probably be in contention for that best midfielder award. I think Barella, Inter Milan, will probably win it because he's an excellent player. But McTominay's been brilliant and even better than the levels he showed at Man United. A lot of Man United fans didn't want him, strangely, because I thought he was one of the best players, even when they were really not a great team. And they're an even worse team now without him. It's a strange dynamic, but it's a really nice one to see, because their careers have flourished out with England and Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, if you see McTominay linked with Inter Milan, that's how good he's doing in Italy. So, he's clearly getting the props over there. Someone, I can't remember who it was in the comments earlier, mentioned about, your sort of McLeans and Adams under the future of Scotland. I mean, your McTominays and John McGinn's under exactly the future, but, we appreciate them for what they're doing now. They're players that are the staple of Scotland. They're what Scotland built around there, are now. So, full credit to the likes of McTominay, McGinn, and obviously Gilmore for going over to Italy. It's big moves these players are making, and it's moves that are only going to make the national team better, because they're playing in better leagues where it's a bit more physical demanding, and they're playing with a better player, so they'll only improve. So it's good all round for us.
I think I heard something. I don't know if it was all the rubbish or whatever, but I think I heard something about. I think it was Juventus. Maybe were setting up like a sort of scouting training camp in Scotland, and it sort of shows how well received the sort of Scottish footballers have been by the Italians, and they see Scotland and Scottish players as a sort of untapped market, you could say, where they can come in, get our players for cheap, because a lot of the clubs can't charge that much money for their players. You always see players down in England going for stupid money in comparison to what Scottish teams usually charge for their players. And even like Lennon Miller, I could very easily see him making the step to the Serie A as well. And yeah, it's a nice relationship because the Italian League is one of the best in the world, and it's only going to grow our players and help our national team.
I totally agree with that, Ethan. I mean, I know people say that footballers don't talk, but I can assure you they're talking. And I can assure you that if you're Antonio Conte, I'm sure he's saying to like Scott McTominay, by the way, are you able to talk to your teammate and see what we can get him for in the summer? That's the sort of thing that happens in football. I mean, I'll still tell you if you know football, but that's the sort of thing that happens. They talk to each other and they speak about trying to get moves for each other. And as much as I would love to see Lennon Miller stay in Scotland and join Celtic or Rangers, I don't think he will. Just the way I know that his family don't really see his future being in Scotland. I think he'll move abroad. But yeah, I think he would be a big asset abroad as well. And I think he would also be an asset because he's playing every game. I think if he went to a Celtic I think he would definitely play every single match for Rangers. But I think for Celtic at the moment, I think sometimes it's like, I'm not going to say we can make a snobby because it's a player from Scotland, but sometimes we can like see if it was Rio joining from Japan. I think everybody would go, yeah, that's a great move. Well, let's see what he's made of and see him play 30 or 40 games. But because he's Scottish, we go, oh, we need to improve. But I think in terms of Miller, I think he's a brilliant player.
Yeah, I mean, Regan, I see I agree. I sort of agree and disagree. I'd love to, watch Lennon Miller play for Rangers or Celtic for, the next 6-7 years and, grow his development in Scotland and be able to watch him all the time. But I also look at it and go, I'd love to see Lennon Miller moved into a Premier League club in the future and, be playing in England, Germany, Italy, Spain, somewhere like that where, he's playing, among some of the best players in the world. So, I mean, it's always a tough situation when you see players because I remember growing up watching the likes of Lewis Morgan, how talented he was for us. And, you don't really want him to leave, but at the same time you go, if he leaves, he can go and develop in some of the best leagues in the world. Obviously, he's over him in the MLS, but, the likes of Lennon Miller and James Wilson, no Hearts fan will probably really want, if you were to ask Graham, I don't think he'd want James Wilson to leave anytime soon, but you'd also look at it and go, if you can go down and, build a future in Germany, Italy, England, that's good for his future.
I was just going to ask Alistair, because, Alistair, do you think it's a good thing to leave in Scottish football, or do you see it as a bad thing? Because I'm a little bit mixed. I think it's a great thing for these guys to try something different, and I think that's why that you see Scott McTominay dominating the ball and Billy as well. I think that's why you see them dominating the ball because they've been over there and it's totally different over there. Or do you think it's better for them to be in Scotland?
Well, I would make the point that Scott McTominay didn't actually get developed in Scotland. You got to bear in mind he was developed by Man United, so he's not actually come through Scottish football. So, I mean that's just a pedantic point, but it's an important one. I think if you look at where we are just now, and this comes back to the earlier conversation about youth development, we've got two boys who've just gone down south, one to Arsenal, one to Fulham, 15, 16-year-olds, right? So there clearly is talent here. But you also look at where they're going. Those two boys have been sold for 150 grand or something, which is pennies for these clubs. You then get people who are going down to England like McGrath and people like that, Jason Kerr. They're not really making it in the top division. So the really, really good players like Lennon Miller, I can entirely understand why they're going to go down south because Scottish football isn't as good now as it was. We've had this conversation many times. There's not a Laudrup, there's not a Larsson playing up here. There's not a Gascoigne. No. There's nobody like that, I'm afraid. Let's not kid ourselves. Outside the old firm, and to be honest, probably only Celtic, there's not many players who are going to get a look in the Premier England, apart from one or two people who come through. So youth development is absolutely fundamental. And it really comes down to actually competition, playing in a better league, that'll make you better. just a wee story here, just to make the point about, you know, the youth thing and being good enough and old enough and how people talk to each other. True story, right? Ali McCoist was at St Johnstone, obviously started his career. John Brogan, who was our star striker at the time, top goal scorer in the club's history, said to Alec Linney, the manager, I think he's good enough, can you put him in the team? Or words to that effect. And that didn't work out too badly.
And I think that's a good point you make. I think back then there was a lot more trust, but I don't know if it's because of social media, Facebook, Twitter, and things like that.
But obviously we'll touch upon this more on Tuesday night in the show, but like everybody's mentioned about players going down south and all the rest of it, but for me it's got to come back to money. I mean, look at the players that kisses the badge and say, oh yeah, I love to be here, and then the next minute they're away. But they're away for more money. You know what I mean? So I think me and Alistair spoke about this millions of times, not on the show, but like football's not football now, football's a business. And I know what you were saying about Henrik Larsson and Brian Laudrup coming through, but you've got to remember, Alistair, that was before the kind of big boys got involved in football.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because the amount of money on offer down south is huge now. It's a bit like Terry Butcher coming up here to play for Rangers, you know, Chris Woods, you know, all those guys who played for that great Rangers team. There's no chance they'd come to Scotland now, because as you say, the money's just not there. And that obviously makes it much harder to break out of that, because you haven't got enough money to invest. All the clubs they've got to have academies, because it's a UEFA requirement. It costs them a lot of money. I'm willing to bet you that the vast majority of them lose money on it.
And I think as well, see, unless you're a Callum McGregor, like a die in the wall Celtic fan now, a lot of players don't want to play Celtic or Rangers. It's like see years ago that was a kind of be all and end all, but nowadays it's not. Nowadays people want to go to Spain and Germany and the Italian league. Scottish football's not the be all and end all anymore.
I mean, I think the perfect example, Alistair, and everybody here is Ben Doak. I mean, he was coming through at Celtic and he got 5 minutes or half an hour in one game, and then next minute he's off. Okay, you could argue the point that he's playing for one of the best teams in Europe, Liverpool, you know, and get more money, and that's it.
Yeah, you could also argue the same applies to Dalglish. I mean, you know, he didn't do too badly at Liverpool, but I do know what you mean. Money's going to talk.
Again, Ken Dalglish came through a different era. I
No,
know.
you're right.
You're right.
Yeah, it is. It's different nowadays because the money on offer. It's like, you know, take Reagan's point. These two guys who've left St Johnstone, I have no idea if they have any allegiance to the old firm. Absolutely none. But interestingly, they've gone down to Arsenal and Fulham because, let's be honest, even Fulham will be paying an awful lot more money than Rangers or Celtic.
Yeah, and also like if you're a Ben Doak, for example, you know that if you go and do well in the Italian league or you do well in the Championship, see in 10 years' time when you're ending your career, you can always go back up to Celtic and do well. It's not as if it's going to. That's your be all and end all. I mean, the days that like someone like Scott Brown comes through and stays in Celtic for 12 years, that's not going to happen anymore.
No.
It's just no, because don't forget, Michael, Brendan Rodgers said he tried to get McGregor to Leicester City 3 times, and Celtic said no because they sold Tierney in the same window. So McGregor was sent to go. The deal was all agreed for 25 million.
I'm sure we'll come back to the subject on Tuesday night. Before we go, I need to tell you about the show on Tuesday night. It is the locker room focusing on youth football in Scotland, and we're on at 7:30 as well. Before we get to Tuesday, guys, big game tonight, Scotland against Greece, guys. Give us your score prediction, Robbie, for tonight.
My prediction is going to be Scotland 2-1 Greece.
And I'm afraid to say, Ethan, that I will admit it. I gave my prediction on Thursday, and I did say 1-0 to Scotland, and we won 1-0. So there you go. Ethan, what's your prediction tonight?
My prediction for the first leg was 1 each, and it was 1-0. My prediction for this leg was 1-0, but I'm going to go with 1 each. Again, I think Greece might score first, but I think Scotland will score in the second half to squeeze through and stay in League Nations A.
Alistair?
I completely agree with Ethan. I think that's probably what will happen. I think Greece are too good not to score, but I do think you'll get the Hampden. Well, I do hope that you'll get the Hampden crowd in the second half, and we'll sneak sneak. That's the wrong expression. We will get a deserved equaliser. Let's put it like that. But listen, you'd tell for that now, wouldn't you? Let's be honest. Yeah.
Regan, what about you?
I'm going to go Scotland 3, Greece 0.
There you go. And I'm actually getting lined up right now. Greece isn't the word. Remember that song? Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me. So I've got that song lined up ready to go before we come back on. No, we haven't actually. So we'll be back on at 7 o'clock tonight with the post-match reaction to Scotland against Greece. Thanks to all your comments. Thanks to everybody that's watching. It's been brilliant numbers this afternoon. Come back and join us at 7 o'clock. Thanks to Regan. Thanks to Ethan. And thanks to Robbie and Alaska. That's some half-back line, by the way, as well. A five-a-side team, maybe one day. So we'll see you at 7 o'clock. And come on, Scotland.
All the build-up and reaction to Scotland in the Nations League.